Alright guys, today we're going to find rational zeros using synthetic like we have been doing, and here we go. The rational zero theorem. Now, first of all, we need to talk about what rational means. Rational just means any number you can write as a fraction. No repeating decimals are okay. No decimals that don't stop, don't repeat, like pi or e, and anything that you can write as a fraction, rational. Basically, the way you find rational zeros are possible ones. Remember, every rational zero has the following form. These are the possibilities of what would solve or what would be zeros of this function. You take the factors of the constant term, which is always the last term, over the factors of the leading coefficient, which is the first term. So the factors of the last term over factors of the leading coefficient, and that's your possibilities. All right, let's just look at them here. List the possible rational zeros of f using a rational zero theorem. Now, what I'm always going to do is I'm going to take the factors of the constant term, put over factors of the leading coefficient. Now, because the leading coefficient's 1, always you can do plus or minus because positive and negative numbers both go into 15. I'm just going to put the factors of 15, 1, 3, 5, and 15, because the first coefficient is 1. So if you did 1 over 1, 3 over 1, 5 over 1, 15 over 1, this is those numbers, so that's all I'm going to do. Number 2 is a little different. Number 2, again, factors of the last number, the constant term, over factors of the leading coefficient. The factors of 2 are 1 and 2. The factors of 6 are 1, 2, 3, and 6. So what I'm basically doing is putting these factors over those. So I'm going to put them over 1 first. When I put them over 1, I don't really write the 1. I'm just going 1, 2, 3, 6 over 1. Put them over 2, 1 over 2. I'm not going to write 2 over 2 because it's just 1. I'm going to say 3 over 2. 6 over 2 I'm not going to write because it's really just 3 and I already have a 3 there. Okay, now it says find all the real zeros. What we're going to do here is, same deal, start off by making your list of possibilities. So because the leading coefficient is 1, I'm going to do the factors of 20 over 1, which should be 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, 20. Those are the factors of 20 over 1. Now here's the bad news. Bad news is I got to pick one and try it and see what happens here, which one it might be. So I'm going to try 1, see if it works. I'll go 1, negative 8, 11, 20. And the way you will know if it works is if you get 0 for because it's called a 0. Bring the 1 down. 1 times 1 is 1. Add, multiply, add, multiply. I'm not going to get 0 right there. So let's try negative 1. So I'm going to put negative 1 here and go 1, negative 8, 11, 20. Bring the 1 down. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Add, that's negative 9. Multiply, that's 9. 20, negative 20. That does give me 0, so there's one of my answers right there. Negative 1 does work. Now take whatever's left here in your quotient, x squared minus 9x plus 20. See if that will factor so we can find the other ones, and it does. Factors of 20, that had to be 9, or 5 and 4. X minus 5, x minus 4. So my 3 zeros are 5, 4, and those came from here. And then the first one I found was the red circle, negative 1. And there you go. There's your 3 zeros. So not too bad. The bad part's having to find one that works first. And to be honest with you, I may show you a little thing on your calculator tomorrow that may help you find that pretty quickly. Okay, let's try this one. Find the real zeros. Wow. Factors, wow, I got a 10 in the front. Get ready for a list here. Factors of 12 are 1, 2, 3, 4. Factors of 10 are 1, 2, that's a 2, that's a 2. That won't work. 5, 10. Oh, what's going on here? So, 4, 6, 12. Good, not. Okay, here we go. So I'm putting all the factors of 12 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 12 over 1. Now putting them over 2. 1 over 2. Not going to do 2 over 2. 3 over 2 is good. 4 over 2 I'm not going to do. 6 over 2 is really 3 over 2. 2 over 2 I'm fine. Put them over 5. 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 3/5, 4/5, 6/5, 12/5. Golly, now put them over 10. 1/10, I don't need 2/10. 3/10, I don't need 4/10. 6/10, 12/10. Okay, we're good. Good, not. So you have to pick a number from that list that's going to work. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to cheat on the little calculator thing I'm going to show you tomorrow. And I found out negative 1/2 does work. So I'm going to put negative 1/2 in my box. I'm going 10, negative 11, negative 42, 7, 12. Wow. Bring the 10 down. Negative 1/2 times 10 is negative 5. Add, multiply, add, multiply, add. Look at this. Look at this. Got a 0. All right, but the bad news is I still have 4 terms down here. I've got a 10, a negative 16. I don't know how to factor that without grouping, and I can tell by looking at it. I'm going to factor that by grouping. So I got to find something else that's going to work. Now, still using the same numbers on the top. I got to find one. Let me think here what might work. Okay, so before I go back and look at what that could be, one thing I have neglected to tell you with the synthetic, well, I probably told you yesterday and forgot to tell you again today, is because I had a fraction in my box right there, I can reduce my quotient by whatever the denominator is, which is 2. So I'm going to make that a 5, a negative 8, a negative 17, and a 12. That helps a little bit. Just to figure out what goes in my box. Now, a couple of options here. You can use the same list because these numbers are still the ones that will work, or you can reduce your list by looking at your first coefficient, which is 5. Now, I'll be honest, I went back and looked at my calculator just real quick, and I think that when looking at it, I think 3/5 is going to be the one. Let's check and see. I know it's going to be like, not a fraction. Bring the 5 down. If you do 3/5 times 5, the 5's cancel. That's 3. Look what happens. The 5's cancel again. This time it's negative 3, which is negative 20. 5 goes into 20 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. That's negative 12, which is exactly what we wanted. So now I have this. I've got the numbers on the bottom. I'm going to make this a little smaller there. But because my 5 was the denominator, I'm going to reduce my denominator by 5, make that a 1x squared, a 1x, and a 4. Now that will not factor because I cannot think of anything that goes into 4 that gives me a negative 1. So here we go. X equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I'm just going to simplify that. 1 plus or minus, that's going to be 17 when I work all that out inside, over 2. Now, that counts as 2 of my solutions, or 2 of my zeros. So my zeros, come over here on the side, my zeros are negative 1/2, 3/5, 1 plus the square root of 17 over 2, and 1 minus the square root of 17 over 2. Wow, that's quite a problem. Hard as it's going to get right there. Got one more slide, and it's easier than this one. That was a doozy. All right, last one here. And this right here is what I've been doing on my calculator. It says use the graph to shorten the list of possible zeros of that function, rational zeros anyway. So what I'm going to do first, start off by making my list again. So factors of 15, 1, 3, 5, 15, over the factors of 4, 1/2, 3 halves, 5 halves, 15 halves, and also 4, 1, 4, 3, 4, 5 fourths, 15 fourths. There's my list. So I'm looking at that list and looking down here at where it might cross. And the first thing I see is this one right here. Like it looks like a 0 might be at negative 1. So let's try negative 1. And that's going to be a 4, negative 12, negative 1, and 15. I hope this works. Bring down the 4. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. That's negative 16. Negative 1 times negative 16 is positive 16. Add, multiply. 0, that looks perfect. That gives me this, 4x squared minus 16 plus 15. Now, that may factor. So I'm going to do the old slide, divide, slide deal. See what we get. Slide the 4 would be x squared minus 16x plus 60. I'm not seeing it. Not seeing it yet. Oh yeah, I do. X minus 10, x minus 6. I should have seen that right off the top. X minus 10, x minus 6. Now, divide by the 4 again. Bring the 4 back in here. Divide. That would give me 5 halves. That's going to give me 3 halves. And then slide one more time. So I get, I actually don't need to because it just says find the zeros. So that's good enough. My zeros would be negative 1's the one I found first. 5 halves is going to come from right here. And 3 halves is going to come from right there. And there are your zeros right there. So What I was doing a minute ago on my calculator is I was just graphing it and looking at where it crossed the x-axis. Wherever it crossed, that's what I picked first, to be honest with you. That was my cheating shortcut. So, I guess you're here on the beach again, 2 videos row, probably the last time you hear it. I think the last one I made down here. Enjoy the sound. I'm enjoying the sound. See you tomorrow.